let's clear this question once and for all. Can Ableton Synths actually compete in the UK bass scene versus other synthesizers like Serum, Phaseplant and whatnot? The answer is this. Right, so as you can see, I'm using Operator, I'm using Drift, and I'm using Wavetable, and those are my favorite synths within Ableton Live. They're extremely powerful, and I find them super unique. And Operator, I still think is the dawn for bass music. And you can get basically all the really cool tones that you get in a lot of UK garage, in a lot of minimal drum and bass, etc. So let's explore this. I've got the project here already. I've got some synths. Let's delete those for now. In fact, let's save it, because why not? Sound it decent. So let's go over here. So I already got these synthesizers, and as you can see, I've got Operator. So let's explore it. So I'm going to start just with one bass note. Already wrote it. Is literally, like, as you can see here, is F0, which is kind of like the lowest note that you can play really before it disappears in the sound, in most people's speakers anyway. And you can see that there's a little bit of like pitch bend, which is very characteristic of drum bass and whatnot. Just have a little bit of a pitch bend on the start of some notes just to give it some flavor. So if we were to press play, you can hear that in Operator here. It's just let's just stop the drums. Let's focus on Operator itself. Right, let's bring the volume up. So it's just basically, obviously I've got sidechain here, so let's just turn it off so you can hear the tone perfectly. So Operator, as you know, is an FM synth. Let's explore it a little bit. So it's an FM synth, but I'm going to show you just one technique instead of like going through everything, because that will take too long. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to use this algorithm, which is basically we can hear the signal from the ones at the bottom, and the timbre of that signal, the character of that signal, can be manipulated by the one at the top. So it's kind of like the opposite of filtering. In filtering, we take energy away. With Operator and with FM, we add energy to the sound, right? So let's explore that a little bit more. So first things first, let's play, because one thing that you might notice is like on Operator, we got different envelopes per oscillator, which is insanely powerful anyway on itself. But you can see I'm running 2. So there's 2, as you can see, let's turn it down a little bit, so otherwise we're hearing clipping. Right, so that's just 2 sines stack. But what I can do is I can detune them to give them some movement, right? And you get this kind of beating. If you're not wearing headphones, you're not going to really be able to hear this. So please do wear headphones in order to hear the sound fully. That sounds quite nice, right? Obviously headphones, right? But the other thing that we can do as well is we can add a different tone just by playing around with D. And depending on the numbers here, it's going to be brighter or it's going to be more mellow. And this is exploratory. The level is the intensity of the tone that we are going to add. But let's have a listen to that. That's quite cool. Let's make it a little bit higher. So if you use 2, for example, it's going to give you something that sounds a bit like a square. That's nice. And this envelope, you can make it actually come in gradually, right? So you can make it sort of like it comes in, instead of like coming in right away, that modulator, it comes in a little bit more softly, right? You must have heard that sound in so many tracks. So let's add a little bit of reverb. Let's bring it up a little bit more. So I'm just going to go back and let's increase the sustain level, and let's open up the attack so it takes a little bit longer. It's too fast, right? It's like, you know, we want it to kind of carry on a little bit longer. There you go. That's the sort of sound. Again, we can explore also changing the shape here, or we can even go to the oscillator. I mean, we've got different shapes. Obviously, use something like a sawtooth. We've got this really cool sound as well. So obviously that works quite nicely as well with the track. So let's hear that. Let's add sidechain compression. And adding a little bit of reverb. It's like a very short reverb. just on the returns there, just to give it a little bit of flavor. But you can hear straight away, and that's obviously a sawtooth. But for a more kind of garagey sound, then go for a sine. If you want it to be a little bit more aggressive, you can increase the level. And the movement is the fine tuning, right? Is the two oscillators, the A and B. When you change the fine tuning, you get beating. So you get kind of wobble, basically. Look, right? Let's take that vocal away because it's gonna drive me crazy after a while. But you get the idea, right? And that can be automated if you want it. In fact, let's do that. Why not? Let's just hit record. There you go. Cool. If you wanted to add noise in order to give it a little bit of flavor, there's two ways that we can do it. So of course we can just manually add it. So we can go over here on the oscillator C, which is at the bottom there, and we can add noise. You can see that we can select it right there, and I'm going to use white noise, and I'm going to make it come in a little bit more gradual, right? So let's just play around with that, and let's bring the level up. So you can hear that noise coming in gradually. So that's one way that we can do it. Okay. Additionally, we can potentially use another LFO here, and we can add extra flavor to the sound. So obviously that's going to give it some wobble to the pitch, but we can also, if we want it, we can add a little bit of noise as well, and we can make that noise run really fast in this speed of the LFO, so you can see the frequency goes really, really up. Let's try adding noise that way. Look, so I'm going to turn that off, and that LFO is going to control the pitch of all the oscillators. It's very subtle, but it adds there. I don't know if you can hear. It's very, very subtle again. There you go. And you can, of course, make it come in gradually as well. See, this is one of the beautiful things about Operator. This is why Operator is so insanely powerful. Right. Additionally, if we want it, we can add more character to this oscillator. Or we can add more. We can add more partials. Basically, we can design our own waveforms just by shaping it like this. So that gives us a different sound altogether. Or we can even go to the modulator, which is the one that's adding character, and we can shape the waveform that way. Look, I'm just going to start. It's just exploratory, so you can just add partials, and as you add partials, you can see the waveform shape changes. I actually really like that. So yeah, I like that. Let's save it. Cool bass, bass one. All right, there you go. So you can see Operator is insanely powerful, and of course we can add distortion, and yeah, we only getting started, but we can add some hard clipping or change the distortion to maybe like a sine clipping distortion, which is a little bit nicer for bass sound. Obviously that's a bit too aggressive. I would say, like, for UK bass, you don't want it to go that high. Just add a little bit of flavor. That's nice. There you go, right? So that is Operator, which, as you can hear, is insanely powerful. But you might think, okay, Drift, let's see what Drift can actually do for us. And in all fairness, you don't need any of these other synths like Serum and all that stuff. Like, they are nice to have, obviously, because they have quite a lot of extra capabilities. But in order to create really good and convincing bass sounds that they are fat and chunky, you don't need anything else. Like, Ableton has got everything. So let's go into Drift and let's see what Drift can actually do for us. So let's play that. All right, so it's quite a long note. In fact, let me just make that. Actually, that's okay. I'm just going to roll with that. So in Drift, one of the things I'm going to show you just on this particular video is this. Obviously, we've got a noise generator. So that's already adding noise. Let's turn the reverb off and let's just take the compressor off so we can just hear noise. Drift. All right, there we go. Cool. So look, that's basically, I'm just adding a sine and adding noise, right? Already sounds different, right? It's not the same kind of sound. But one thing that Drift can do is that it's basically emulating the synthesizers from the West Coast synthesis, and you can do wave folding, and that gives it some really nice tones. So it goes from a sine that obviously sounds really nice with noise, obviously like this, like just like that, sounds cool. But if you wanted to add more harmonics, if you wanted to add more complexity, we can play around with the shape here. And you can see it changes the shape. It folds back onto itself, right? So really, really cool. But this is not where the magic happens. So the magic happens here. Obviously, we got a sub. We got another oscillator here. That's a sub oscillator that you can detune. Just gonna keep it like that. I'm gonna obviously make it 1. Detune it to give it some movement. The noise is too full on, isn't it? You got a little bit of noise is nice, but what we want to do is we want to modulate this shape. And how do we modulate it? Well, one thing I'm going to show you, which is really, really cool, is this is based on like a lot of the synthesizers from Buchla synths, or I don't know if you know guys like the Syracuse, but make noise. They got basically envelopes that when they loop, they can generate a tone. And there's also, I think the Microfreak has it as well. So you can see that we got an envelope here, but that envelope can be retriggered, right? It's like a loopable envelope. And what we can do here is we can say, okay, the envelope 2 is going to control the amount of shape, but have a listen to what that does to the sound. Okay, you're like, cool, Hector, that's interesting. That's more like a sawtooth, right? Let's speed up the rate. Ah, now we're talking. Let's make it less. That's too much, but you can see the cool, really, really cool sound. But the good thing about this is that we can actually set it so it's a bit like a FM synth in a sense, right? So we can set that to the ratio, and then we can really fine tune it. It's going to A, and let's bring it up a little bit. Play around with this a little bit. There you go, right? So the other thing as well that we can do is we can create unison, and that's going to give us more voices, right? So that sounds a little bit more exciting, isn't it? Let's add a little bit of drift. So you've got a little bit of movement. Can you hear that? So it's really crunchy. Let's open up the unison. If you want it to be more stable, we can potentially bring the tuning down a little bit. So that's a little bit more stable. Cool. So that's the kind of sound that you can get. And of course, we can play around with the ratio. I quite like it like that. It's a really fat sound. We can bring the levels down. So we get more of that, maybe a little bit more noise. Yeah, and then bring oscillator 1 in. Like that. What else can we do? We got an LFO, so potentially this LFO can be routed to anything here. So we can go modulation page here, and we can say LFO 1 to maybe the oscillator 1 gain. So maybe that comes in and out, something like that. Nice. Maybe let's speed up the rate of the LFO. Let's make it so it retriggers for every note. And then maybe we can like make it like a sawtooth. Nice. Let's slow it down. Yeah, let's turn it up a little bit. Right, let's hear it in context. See what that feels like. So this is one of the possibilities of doing it. There's obviously more. We can turn down the unison if you want to kind of like bring more focus onto the synth. So it's less smeared, right? It's a little bit easier to Nice. And of course, I don't know, once you've got the note playing, you can explore it. And of course, you can even do abstract stuff. Like you could potentially say that the LFO can maybe control the volume if you want it, and things like that. So that's another thing as well. You can even go to the main volume LFO, and you get more of a choppy kind of. So remember, this can be adjusted. You know, you can just sort of play with different shapes. Maybe that's better with the triangle. That's quite cool, actually. I don't mind that. Maybe let's do less of the gain. Maybe let's play around with the rate here. There you go. Obviously, volume-wise, it needs to go a little bit louder, but you get the idea. Let's open it up a little bit with the unison. And let's use sidechain. There we go. Let's turn that on. For example, I mean, I'm just giving you some examples there with drift. So it's really capable and only scratching the surface. Okay, there's more to do with this, but you can hear that you can get some fairly convincing sounds. If you want it to be like a little bit more stable, you can also go to the oscillators and set that to retrigger, and so it sounds more. It sounds less sort of wobbly, right? It sounds more stable. Like if you listen to it now, look. Versus that sounds kind of like messy. With retrigger, basically the oscillators always start from the beginning when you hit the key on the keyboard. And lastly, Wavetable. And what can we do with Wavetable? Well, Wavetable is, we can do a lot. Obviously, with the things with Wavetable is a Wavetable synth, so it kind of follows along with the likes of Serum, but it has got a lot more capabilities built in. So let's just change the shapes to start with, because this is one thing that we can do. We don't have to use the default shapes that like sine, sawtooth, and whatnot. We can even go to some cool kind of sab waves here. So let's hear what that sounds like. So let's press play. It's just a basic one bass note. I'm gonna just solo it so we can hear it, and I'm gonna turn off the sidechain so we don't get distracted by that. Right, so I did a little bit of pitch bend here, as you can hear as well on this particular one. What did we do? Yeah, MIDI control pitch bend right at the start of the note. So it's almost like an 808 kind of sound. But with this, of course, we can play around with this. So we can change the shape, right? And of course, we are going to be using an envelope to control that. Why not? So let's do that. So I'm just going to go over to envelope 2 maybe. And we're going to say, okay, cool. So envelope 2 is going to control the position here. So let's go to the matrix, oscillator 1 position, envelope 2. Right, so I didn't like that. It's okay. Let's go over to here and let's reshape it. Yeah, that's nice. That in itself is already sounding quite cool anyway. Let's apply a little bit of unison here. So I'm going to go into the, let's go into phase sync, see what that sounds like. Sounds quite cool, but I'm going to go maybe to to shimmer or classic. Let's go to classic. I think that's going to be the nicest. For bass sounds, in all fairness, I think like 3 voices is more than enough. Otherwise it can get messy. We can have a sub oscillator that we can add just to kind of enhance the sound. But there's another thing as well that we can do that can be really nice as well. Within Wavetable, we can shape the actual wavetable in many ways, but we can apply FM, which is what we did before. So we wanted to have kind of like a garagey kind of sound onto this, we can do it easily. So I'm going to go to the tuning and I'm going to set it to maybe like, I don't know, let's try 50%. And then the amount is the amount of modulation. I mean, that's cool, but the key with these sounds is just a little bit of that, right? And of course we can play with this, and we got another envelopes. So I tend to use envelopes for this, but we can use LFOs as well. But for now, I'm going to go with the envelopes. And here I can say, okay, the amount of FM is going to come in gradually like that. So let's go over to oscillator 1 FM amount. It's already selected. Envelope 3, and let's play around with the attack. There you go. Let's increase the amount so it's a little bit more obvious. Nice, and of course we can go much higher in the tuning. Or if you play around in between tones, you get beating as well, which is really interesting. That's quite nice. What else can we do? Okay, so we got a filter here as well. And it's a double filter, which is really interesting. So for example, imagine I'm going to add this clean filter. Oh, okay, let's open the filter. Let's bring it back. Sorry, my mistake. Let's bring it up. So we can add a little bit of extra energy with oscillator 2. And it doesn't have to be the same semitone. You can potentially bring it up higher. I quite like it low, actually. It's quite nice. Maybe detune it. And we can add a little bit of movement, maybe with the LFO. We can do that. LFO 1. Let's see what happens. Nice. Cool. We can make it more subtle, so it comes in gradually, as you can see there, so it's not takes a little bit of time. And remember that you can always just change the waveform, see what happens. You know, for instance, that's my favorite one. It's quite nice. One of my favorite ones. I do find out sometimes with Wavetable synthesizers, if you add too many harmonics, it can get a little bit intense, really. Like, that's also quite nice. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, let's explore that. And then the other thing that we can do is we got another filter here. And on this filter, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a notch filter to give it kind of like almost like a drum and bass kind of sound. Notch filter kind of sounds like a phaser, which is really cool. Like that. And I'm going to use one that has plenty of character, like the OSR, so I can actually do a very distorted kind of movement and a lot of resonance. Look, it's quite loud, isn't it? Let's bring this synth down in volume. Nice. And the resonance gives it a tonality which is really, really nice. Can you hear that? Maybe too much. That's quite cool. So we can go over to the matrix and we can say, well, we got another LFO here. Potentially we could just say filter 2. Not so much. Maybe like less movement, I would say. Maybe slow it right down. Nice. Subtle is best with this. You can hear it, right? Let's increase the movement by... Nice. Let's lower the resonance maybe. The lower the resonance, the wider the gap. So fat. Right, so we got that. Slightly more breakbeaty, but I like it. I don't know, let's hear that in context. Let's try changing the waveform here. nice as well. So it's a matter of exploring different waveforms and just go for the ones that are a bit more subtle. I do really love this one for some reason. It gives it like a really nice character. It's not so in your face. So anyway, guys, you decide, but hopefully you get the idea that the Ableton Synths are actually extremely capable. I don't think you need any of the other ones. And of course, you can apply, you can play around. I mean, this is the pattern that we've got now. Let's hear it in context anyway. Let's just play with this one. Let's bring a little bit of reverb. Cool. So thank you so much for watching. If you end up watching the whole video, much appreciated. So please don't forget to subscribe and leave us a comment as well and a like. And remember as well, I'm a teacher. I've been teaching for 14 years. So if you're interested on having one-to-ones with myself, you can find links in the description to this video. And yeah, thanks so much for watching, and see you on the next one.